This is Paris Vandale, and you are listening to the Fans View podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View podcast. Today's guest is someone who truly lives her character, both inside and outside of the ring. She's one of the longest reigning champions in chaotic wrestling history. She's a standout on the New England wrestling scene and one of the boldest personalities in women's wrestling. She's known as the Total Diva. She's built a brand on confidence, style, and backing it up in the ring. From major championship runs to national level appearances, AEW, you name it. This episode is about evolution, confidence, and betting on yourself. Today's guest is Miss Paris Vandale. Paris, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I try, right? Hey, you're a superstar. We're going to make you a superstar.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. I can't tell you how excited I am to talk to you, and even more excited for people to kind of get to know you a little bit.
I'm excited.
Let's just start from the beginning. I mean, I don't know where else to jump in. When did wrestling, kind of pop on your radar? When did you get bit with that wrestling bug?
So I have two older brothers who grew up as wrestling fans. And they're quite a bit older than me, so wrestling has always been on in my house. I don't really have a memory besides wrestling. So I'd say that's kind of the start. I was just a fan. And then as time grew, I would say the first person who really made me go maybe I could do this was AJ Lee. And then later on it was Mercedes Moné. So I'd say those were my two that made me go, I need to do this.
Okay, so you're a lifer then. When did wrestling go from something I enjoy watching, a hobby, to I'm gonna do this, I need to pursue this?
So, kind of like I said, I watched NXT back when it was the reality TV show, and I think it was either season 2 or season 3 where AJ Lee was on. It was the all women season. And I was 9 or 10, and I heard this woman talk about how, she was a wrestling fan, and I just thought that was so cool that didn't even come across my mind that that was a possibility that I couldn't do that. So it was just kind of sort of a dream, far-fetched, of maybe when I grow up, I'll be a wrestler somehow, some way. But I would say the exact moment that made me go from oh, this is a dream to no, I need to make this a reality was the NXT Takeover Brooklyn match where it was Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks at the time, and Bailey. And that was no, I need to do it. It happened.
That's such a problem. I'm so sorry to cut you off. That's a perfect segue because I want you to expand on that a little bit. You've talked about Sasha versus Bailey being a turning point in your fandom. What did that match kind of just get stirred up in you that, like you said, it became a reality to chase this dream?
I don't really have a specific why as to why. It's just an amazing match, and I still think today it's still one of my favorite matches. And I honestly think probably what made me connect to Sasha, specifically Mercedes, was that upon kind of thinking, oh, maybe this is something that I want to do, I was Googling schools that was nearby. In
Right.
Chaotic Wrestling, the New England Pro Wrestling Academy popped up on Google, and I found out that she trained at it was CTC at the time, but she trained there, and I was oh my god, that's so cool. So I was kind of well, she's my favorite wrestler. I already liked her, but then I was okay, this is the school that she came from. I need to train there too. And then that match is just I said, it was amazing.
For sure. What was that first day of training like? Once you've taken the plunge, you're gonna do this, you step in, woof, intimidation, excitement, overwhelming, all of it.
Yeah, definitely. So prior to actually making the jump and signing up, we do fantasy camps a couple times a year. So I started off doing that. I kind of knew that I was going to sign up anyways, but just to kind of get the feel for it, not all at once kind of being overwhelmed. So I feel that definitely helped me. But I would say, yeah, my first day was really intimidating because I had gone to like chaotic wrestling shows, so I was like now in there with like people that like I had watched as like a fan
Right.
going to these indie shows. So it was like it was scary, and like you're not really like day one, you're not really doing a lot. But I come from like a competitive dance background, which is very like based off like perfectionism. So like
Right.
even on day one, I was like kind of, which probably this is such a bad habit, but like I was getting in my head already of being like, why can't I do this? But I think that perfectionism like helps kind of, it makes you kind of want to grow. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the greats have it, I think. It's that little bit of psychotic OCD, got to get everything perfectionist like you said.
yeah, and
You debuted at maybe the best time in the world, right before a global pandemic. How surreal was it to start your career in such a incredibly strange environment?
yeah, I still forget that sometimes that's not how people like come up. It's like so weird to me that like some of my friends who started after me, I'm like, yeah, like you didn't have to experience COVID wrestling. I feel like it was almost like an advantage. Not even really an
Mhm.
advantage, but like I feel like the COVID time you got to you had a lot of downtime, so you got to like focus on just like being like a character.
Right.
But I feel like it also had its hindrances of like a lot of the shows that I was like, or shows, should I say? There were a lot of like closed studio tapings that had
Right.
like the wrestlers as like the fans. So I would say once like restrictions lifted, it was honestly I feel like harder for me to kind of interact with the crowd because wrestlers they're gonna give you like the piped in like yay boo, but like the
Right.
crowd's really gonna like make you work for it. So I feel like that was definitely a culture shock upon when I got to wrestle in front of fans for the first time. It was like having a match all over again.
Right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You got to have your first match twice.
Yeah.
What do you feel like was harder, when you first broke in? Was it learning to wrestle or was it learning to believe in yourself? Because obviously wrestling is a very, very physically demanding thing to do, but I mean, it's just as much, if not more, mental.
So I would say, yeah, definitely. I feel like wrestling in general, I feel like it's hard for like everybody just because it's such like it goes against like your natural like instincts to like want to be
Don't
in
fall
there.
down.
Yeah. So I would say definitely, I would say what was the biggest struggle for me was like the mental aspect. I kind of talked about it, about how like I come from like a competitive dance background where that just like breeds perfectionism, which is great, like for growth. But now you're switching over to this other sport or this other sport activity. That part of your brain just doesn't like shut off. So I feel like it almost like when you're learning, it kind of creates like a lack of confidence because instead of making a
Right.
mistake and going, okay, let me just do that better the next time, like that's fine. It's oh my god, why did I do that? Which is like not a good mental game to be playing, I feel like, especially early on.
For sure, for sure. Was there a moment, early on or even a little bit past then, was there a moment where you're like, I don't know if I can do this? Was there almost a time where you were like, I can't do this, I quit, I'm going home?
No, because just as much as like I'm a perfectionist, I'm also stubborn and I knew that this was something that like I wanted to do. And if I just like gave up, like that's just like I no, like I want to do this. Everything in life is going to be hard. Like so it's about you pushing through those obstacles. And I actually had a conversation with Ava Everett after a class once that like she probably doesn't remember this, but it stuck out to me because I think I was only like 3-4 months into training, and she probably saw me like being super hard on myself, and she pulled me aside and was like, look, like the only way that you're going to get better, just not even just in wrestling but in life, is by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and pushing through that. You don't have to like it, but that's the only way. You're not going to get better if you just keep, putting yourself in these situations where you feel comfortable.
Right.
And I think that moment I was like, you know what? She's right. And it made me feel a little better. Obviously, all as wrestlers, we always are going to have that, like, oh, I want to be better. I want to be better. I want to be better. But I think it was
Right.
that moment that kind of made me relax just a little bit.
Okay, I like that. Kind of turning the page to the the character work that you kind of touched on earlier. Where did the Total Diva Paris Vandale, where did that come from? Where's that persona from? Is that you in real life exaggerated a little bit? Is that all a character? You know, what's the story?
So I feel like I'm a big Total Divas fan.
Okay.
Of the reality show. I still love that show. That's one of my favorite, like, not even guilty pleasures. I'll proudly say it's one of my favorite shows. But me and one of my friends, Armani Chaos, who also wrestles, we have like, we always talk about how we're divas. We love being divas. We love everything like that the divas have to like offer. Like they're so like the glitz, the glamour. So I was just like, why don't I be the Total Diva? And I feel like the Total Diva then kind of evolved into like now people still refer to me as like Total Diva, but I also go by like, the always trending, because I feel like it always encompasses like that diva nature and everything that I love of like the girliness. Like I love reality TV shows. I love Paris Hilton. I just love being like on trend. So I feel like, that fits perfectly with who I am.
When did you realize, like, leaning into that confidence and that arrogance and kind of that bougie character, if you will, like, when did you figure out, like, that's where my edge is?
I think I've always been positioned sort of in that manner. I think even my first match, I was like the aggressor. I was kind of like the heel.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I just, from getting those reps in, that's something that I've always just normally been more comfortable in that role. I think, like I said, I don't think there's like a specific moment. I think it's just the evolution of just continuing to keep working on your craft.
Right. And you've said before, in previous interviews, like, you prefer being booed.
Yes.
Why, does being, because that's totally normal. Why does being a villain feel more natural to you? Are you a heel at heart? You can't help yourself?
I think I always gravitated towards like heels watching wrestling. I feel like maybe that's why, but I also feel like I said, I have more practice over it, and I think you can get away. Now, I don't want to say get away with a lot more, but I think it's easier for me to be character and outlandish character as a heel, whereas like a babyface, I feel like almost a little awkward in a way, because I'm not awkward, but I feel a little bit more like exposed. I feel like as a heel, I can sort of protect myself and sort of toe the line of like Paris
Right.
Vandale the wrestler, Paris Vandale the person. But I feel like you as a babyface, like you're kind of putting yourself out there for people to go, we either like you or we don't. And I think that's a lot harsher to deal with as a babyface, because you're like, oh my god, these people don't like me, but they're like supposed to like me. So I feel like that's normally like, I feel like the consensus of people who are heels is that, like, I don't want to say it's easier, but I feel like you also get to have more fun. You can be super crazy, you can be super mean, you can be super silly, and if people don't like that, then
That's
you're
your
doing your
job.
job.
That's it, right? For sure. Well, you've done your job well, and that's obvious because you hold one of the longest Pan-Optic Championship reigns ever. When did it sink into you, like, I'm making history right now?
So it was like that whole reign. I feel like that whole entire reign, I don't even think it was really one moment of like, I'm making history. I think I was just so grateful that entire like 511-day run, because
But no big deal. We know it right off the top of our head.
I had to drop the number. Gotta remind everybody. Hopefully nobody passes or surpasses me anytime soon. Fingers crossed.
You dastardly heel, you dastardly heel.
But I think, like I said, chaotic wrestling is something that always holds like a special place in my heart. That's the first like indie that I went to go see, a place that I train. So coming from being a fan to then a student to then kind of doing manager valet spots to then being trusted to hold a title, like I was just so grateful for like the entire run. And I think whether I was the longest or whether I was the shortest, like I am just like grateful to have been able to have that trust put in me by like my trainer. Because it was something that you always kind of like talk about, like, oh, this would be cool when I like be a regular on Chaotic, and then now I am, and now I'm the longest reigning champion.
No biggie, no big deal.
No biggie.
Naturally. And I'm glad you said it that way because, to pull the curtain back a little bit, winning a title is cool. In front of, to the fans, it's awesome. Like, oh man, Paris won the title because she beat so-and-so. Behind the curtain, that title's being put on you because somebody believes in you. somebody trusts you to be the face of their company. What did that reign teach you about leadership and, the pressure that comes along with being the face of a company like Chaotic? That's not a small independent outfit.
So like you said, I did feel a lot of pressure because I didn't want to go out there and, have a bad match. I wanted to continue to push myself and have each match be better than the next. And I feel like I got to have a lot of super cool moments in that reign. Like I got to wrestle Sunny Kiss, who is somebody who I'd always wanted to wrestle. I did like the first ever 3 stages of Hell match in Chaotic with Ava Everett, which I think was so cool. She's like somebody who's like a mentor to me. Got to wrestle Aaron Bork a bunch of times, he's another mentor of mine. So I feel like that reign, I feel like definitely, I don't want to say, because they always say the title doesn't make the person, which obviously I feel like that's a true sentiment. But I feel like being that champion and having that pressure on me, I feel like definitely shaped me as a wrestler and pushed me to continue to grow and be the wrestler that's standing here today. And I don't necessarily know, I feel like I would get there, but I don't necessarily know if it would happen as quickly if I didn't have that opportunity to really kind of go head first into the water.
Right, yeah.
Hey you, yeah, watching this right now. I see you. If you're enjoying what you're watching, I've got one quick favor to ask, and it only takes a second, costs you nothing, and makes a huge difference. If you could go ahead and hit that like button, maybe drop a comment. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. Doesn't seem like much, but for small creators, it's everything. So let's help more people find this channel and keep the content coming. And honestly, I'm pretty sure the podcast will be really grateful. So if you're having fun, you like what you see, make it official, click those buttons, and the Fans View podcast, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of talked about it just then, but now and this is a very difficult question to even ask because I know 511 days is nothing to sneeze at. You had a couple matches in that period. Is there a match from that run that I want to say that means the most to you emotionally, but has a special place in your heart? If you could pinpoint it to one match, could you do it?
One match. So that's so difficult.
I know.
Because like you said, it is such a long reign. I will say, I think the one, if I had to go with one, I would say I don't know, it was a Chaotic Countdown, I believe 2023 or 2023 or 2024, where it was myself, Armani Chaos, Becca, and Aaron Rourke for like the Pan-Optic title, obviously, because that's what you just said. And I feel like what was so cool is not only were all 3 of those people in the match people who I'm very close to, but that match was the current champion and the 3 former champions, because at that point there were only 4 champions, myself and the rest of the people in the match. So I think that was a really cool moment because that's not something that will ever be able to happen again, is that the first 4 champions, the first 4 pillars of this division all in one match. And
Right.
It's still one of my favorite matches to this day. So I think it's very, very cool. And I won. So maybe that makes me the best.
Even cooler.
Champion. Yeah.
I'll go with that. I like that. Something I wanted to touch on, I talked about in your intro a little bit, is you being a member of some factions and tag teams and things like that. I want to start with the Higher Society. That team had real chemistry. What made that so special?
So we're best friends, like in real life. He's one of my closest friends, and he's actually the fantasy camp that I had talked to you about. We were actually both at. We didn't really speak to each other there because everything was happening so quickly, but we were both at that. So I feel like our careers have always been super intertwined, and I feel like we started together. So I feel like the chemistry was always there. So I feel like, yeah. That was a very long-winded rant to kind of get to my point. And my camera glitched too, so I was like, oh my god, I hope you can hear me, and I hope I'm not just ranting for you.
No, you're good. You're good. We got you. Being so attached to your partner and to that group, what was the emotional side, like the real life side of breaking away and kind of, evolving into your own lane?
It was honestly, I feel like it was a mutual decision. So I feel like it was scary because we both had only really done tag stuff at that point, but I think it was definitely necessary because we had pretty much done a lot in the short time span that we had been teaming. So I feel like we kind of reached that ceiling, and there was really, you can either continue to stay stuck or you can separate and kind of grow as individuals and then maybe hopefully one day come back, and we've kind of tagged since. But I feel like as sad as it was and as scary as it was, that was the best decision, I feel like, for the both of us in the long run to kind of grow.
Right. And you know, obviously you've had the singles run, you've done things on your own, but now with the Bratz, that's this a whole new level. What's the vision behind that group, would you say?
So Shannon is another one of my close friends. We've wrestled each other a lot. I've wrestled her more than anyone else that I've ever wrestled in wrestling. So we just, once again, we have great chemistry. It wasn't really a I love teaming with Shannon, but it was kind of like a open creation. I was kind of feuding with Kennedy Copeland, and they wanted to kind of evolve that into bringing it into a multi-women program. So then they brought in Shannon, which I was super happy with. Like I said, we've wrestled each other, but that was the first time that we had teamed. So I was super excited to kind of explore that dynamic. And then Zeta kind of was thrown in the picture in and out. And I think Zeta is great. I think Zeta is super charismatic. She's super entertaining to watch. So I feel like that was just another great addition. The Bratz, we didn't have the longest of runs because Shannon unfortunately ended up getting hurt right in the middle of that. But, right. And then she came back and then I got hurt. So, and Zeta got signed. So we haven't been able to do like a Bratz reunion, but hopefully maybe even if it's just one-off, when everybody's ready and healthy, we can get that, because I feel like the Bratz is very fun.
I love it. I love it. Something I want to talk about is confidence. And obviously that goes to that mental side of the game. How has your confidence changed since your debut? Now that you got a couple years under your belt, you know, how has the mindset changed?
I would say I used to get like super like debilitatingly like nervous before matches, and I feel like probably everybody does. And I feel like that's because I was Paris Van Dale playing a like character. Like I was overthinking every single like, how would Paris Van Dale do this? How would Paris Van Dale do that? Like very just like, once again, in my mental blockage, overthinking everything.
No, not you. Not you.
And I think now I still get super nervous. I think that's the part of, you know, being a perfectionist and doing something that you love and wanting to go out there and make it the best possible. But I'm more living in the moment now. Like I don't really have to think of who is Paris Van Dale? Why am I doing this? What would I do here? I can just kind of breathe and have fun. So I feel like that's kind of the evolution. It's less of putting on an act and more of just existing in the world.
Yeah. And I'm sure that comes with time and reps and everything else. Have you ever struggled with comparison or self-doubt in this industry that is so built on, you know, image and presentation and everything like that?
Yeah, I feel like a lot. I feel like that, and that's not like a uncommon answer. I feel like especially in any competitive environment, you're gonna have that sort of like competitiveness, overthinking, comparing yourself to people. Especially I feel like with the girls, because there's not as many spots with girls. Like with men, there's an infinite amount of spots. There's like 5, 6 men's matches on a card. Sometimes you get like 2 women's matches, which is unfortunate, but that's just kind of, hopefully we can get to a point where there's more women's matches on the card. But now we're seeing like women's shows, so I feel like we've progressed a lot to where it's less comparing and everybody can, you know, just kind of help each other out. Whereas I feel like when I had first started, it definitely was like all of us kind of comparing of like, why is she getting that spot? Or yeah.
You're the segue queen, because you took the next question right out of my mouth. Do you think women in wrestling still in 2026 are having to work harder to prove themselves than maybe their male counterparts?
I'd say yes and no. Like I think I had said, we've definitely reached a point where it's better. Like there's a lot of, you know, all women shows, which I love anytime that I get to be on a card that's all women. I think that's great. But I think, I think because there's less spots, I'm trying to get my point. I'm like, there's a lot of thoughts trying to formulate this. But I think I would love to just get to a point where I think we're separating women's wrestling and men's wrestling. And then there's
Right.
intergender wrestling, and there's 3 separate subcategories of wrestling, when I would just love to get to a point where it's all wrestling and women are taken as serious as the men.
I completely understand. One thing, as we kind of start to wrap this thing up, that you obviously, I can't let you out of here without talking about it. You've worked at some serious companies, some 3-letter companies, you know, Beyond, Limitless, MLW, AEW. Do you feel like you're getting closer to establishing yourself at that next level?
I would say before, and this was I think the toughest part about getting injured at the time that I did. I was the busiest that I had ever been in my 5 years of wrestling. So I think I definitely was getting to that point of, you know, maybe getting bigger opportunities. And then I kind of, because like I said, I was wrestling every weekend. I was fortunate enough to make 10 debuts in the 5 months that I did wrestle in 2025, so like that was exciting, so I can't be too mad. But yeah, I definitely, that's something that I would love to kind of get more mainstay opportunities, whether that's just more extra work. Like I said, I would love to do extra work for Impact if I got the chance. TNA, sorry. And like MLW, I'd done MLW once. And that I would love to do more MLW. I would love to, you know, do some Ring of Honor stuff. Everywhere. I'd love to travel. But yeah, I'm really excited to come back and hopefully continue to further myself.
I love it. And it almost, like, when you look at your career, just look at your cage match. It's like, okay, Beyond. All right. Limitless. Okay. MLW. All right. And then we're at AEW. Do you feel like, obviously AEW, you know, and no disrespect to any of those other companies, but AEW in that list is the pinnacle. That's national. That is almost as big as it gets. Does working in front of a crowd like that feel validating or terrifying?
It was terrifying.
I love the honesty. I love that.
It was terrifying, but it was like also like really, really cool. And every buddy that I had gotten the pleasure to wrestle in my couple of matches that I did for Dark was so nice, was so supportive. So I think that kind of eased my nerves a little bit, but still you're going out there and you're wrestling in front of like thousands of people. And then not even that, but like it's being filmed for YouTube. So like now it's millions more people are watching. So it's very, very scary, and it's very different than indie wrestling because it's for like TV, like you're doing TV stuff, so you have to really be hyper focused on camera angles and, you know, lighting and all of that. So rather than I feel like you should always be thinking about that of wrestling for a bigger stage, even when you're wrestling for independent companies. But like now it's like actually in full force, and you have to yeah, so it's definitely terrifying. But this is what you want to do. This is what I want to do. This is what a lot of people want to do as being a wrestler. So you have to kind of accept that it's terrifying. But then move on and go, that was cool. And I think that's literally the story of my life and my careers. Oh my God, that was terrifying. And then after, like, that was pretty cool.
I love it. I love the honesty. I cannot let you get out of here without asking you my 2 favorite questions. This is obviously the Fans View podcast. I'm just a fan. You know, I'm a nerd. What are you a nerd for? What are you a fan of?
So we kind of talked about it earlier. I love reality TV. Like that is, I'm obsessed with it. I love The Housewives. I love Total Divas. I love Jersey Shore. That's like something that like if I could sit around in my house all day and watch reality TV, I would do that. I would say I'm a reality TV buff. I'll talk about it. Don't even get me started on reality TV shows. I'll talk about it for 45 years.
We're gonna have you back. We're just gonna do a pure Jersey Shore episode. I'm here for that. Last but not least, and this is my favorite question to ask everyone, is at this stage, not just of your career, but of life. You're obviously a very young woman. You have tons and tons of bumps ahead of you. How do you define success, though, at this point in your life?
I think success can mean a lot of things, because success can come from small goals to like, you know, I wanted to clean my house today and I did that, so that's a check off my goal list today. Or something as big as, you know, making it to TV and having your sole career be wrestling. So I think success is just setting a goal, no matter how big or small, in accomplishing that and doing what makes you happy. I think success, whether that's success in friends, success in finances, success in career. Yeah.
I love it. Well said. Very well put. Paris, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been so much fun. I could literally sit here and go another hour with you.
We'll
But
have
we're
to
gonna
do
save
another
that.
one. We'll have to do
Yes.
another one.
Absolutely. And I tell a lot of people this. I want them to come back. You have no choice. You're coming back.
No,
That's
I'm
it.
coming. I'm coming back. I love doing interviews. I love talking about myself. I love talking about things, talking about all of wrestling, reality, music, all of the things.
Hell yeah. I love it. We're having you back. We're not going to wait very long either, for sure. Where can people get a hold of you, though? Where can people check out you on social media, all that fun stuff?
So my handle is super easy. It's just the Paris Van Dale on all platforms. So that's X, that's I have a Facebook page, that's Twitter, I already said Twitter, X, Jesus. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. It's late. My mind is like not working right now. But yeah, just the Paris Van Dale on all platforms. Find
Okay,
me.
cool. And are we selling merch online or anything like that?
I am really bad with merch, and I'm going to take accountability with that. I do have t-shirts, but they are really old. If you want to buy an old Paris Van Dale t-shirt, go ahead. I had red hair at that point. I don't have red hair anymore. But if you want it, I'll give it to you. I have
Love
8x10s. Those are old too because I'm not wrestling right now. But yeah, hopefully I come back and I have way better at my merch game because everybody yells at me about this.
We're gonna get on you about that
Yeah.
for sure. Before we let you go, do we have any updates on the injury? What's going on with that?
I don't, unfortunately. Hopefully, I would think it's going to be sooner rather than later. But I'm very excited to be back. I'm going to have some surprises in store, new gear, new music, hopefully new debuts, new people that I'm going to terrorize.
New merch.
Wrestle
I love it.
Shannon Levangie probably 1,001 more times and be really happy about it because she's my favorite person that I get to wrestle.
There we go. Well, we love to hear it. Hopefully, like you said, we'll have you back in the ring, sooner rather than lader. Guys, if you want some old Paris Van Dale merch, go hit her up on social media.
Buy it.
Buy it. I mean, we got a broken wing, we got a men, so
buy my gear. Selling my gear, you can buy that.
I love it. All you little weirdos out there, go buy our gear. No
Please.
judgment. I say weirdos in the nicest way.
No, please buy my gear.
God bless, guys. No hate here. But go support Paris if you can. If you can't support her monetarily, just go hit a follow, subscribe, like, all those fun buttons. They're all free. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Just make sure to go follow Paris, support her, show her some love, tell her you enjoyed her on the Fans View, and don't forget, guys, most importantly, call your mom.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're gonna be joking me.